wanted to speak about the recent 60-minute Australia story about the dangers of travelling overseas for cosmetic surgery. Now, the program included some extremely upsetting experiences from women who went to Thailand for surgery. It also raised some concerns regarding the surgeons connected to Destination Beauty. Now, I've personally used Destination Beauty, so after watching the program, I thought it was important to talk honestly about my own experience. This video is not sponsored by Destination Beauty. They have not paid me to make it, and they have not approved what I'm going to say. This is simply my own personal experience. I wanted to explain the entire process from the emails and the price quote, through arriving in Thailand, the medical checks, the hospital, the hotel, and the final results, which I have now. Some parts of my experience were very good, and some I had some small concerns about. But basically, I felt the organisation, Destination Beauty, and the support made the process much easier, especially when travelling for surgery. However, there are two areas of my cosmetic surgery results that I wasn't completely pleased about. My experience does not cancel out the experiences shown by 60 Minutes. At the same time, another person's terrible experience does not automatically mean every patient has the same outcome. Both things can be true. Someone can receive great care and be pleased with their surgery, and someone else can use the same company and have a very different and possibly a devastating experience and result. That's why I think people need honest information about both sides. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Penny. I'm a New Zealander living in Japan and sharing my everyday life, health journey, studies and experiences of living overseas. I've had two major operations connected with weight loss and appearance, and both of them have been through Destination Beauty. In October 2024, I had bariatric surgery, and later in April 2025, I had facial cosmetic surgery. In this video, I'm mainly going to talk about my cosmetic surgery and the result I have now. However, I will also compare the process with my bariatric operation because some of the medical checks were different. I'm now 5 months after my cosmetic surgery. This means time has passed for me to give a more realistic update. Immediately after surgery, your face is swollen, bruised, and sometimes uneven, like in my case. It is impossible to judge the final result during the first few weeks. And even after several months, some swellings and changes can still occur. However, I can see which parts have improved and which parts I still have concerns. Before we begin, I'd like to make it clear that I am not a doctor. This video is not medical advice, and I'm not telling anyone to have surgery in Thailand. And I'm not telling anyone not to do it. I'm showing you what happened to me, so you can ask better questions and make your own informed decisions. Why did I decide to have surgery overseas? The first question people normally ask, why travel overseas? Cost was one, but it was not the only reason. After losing a significant amount of weight, I noticed changes in my face, my body, and losing weight improved my health and changed my life. It also made some areas of loose skin and facial aging, which was more noticeable. So I began to look at my options. Surgery in some countries, as New Zealand, Australia, Japan, can be extremely expensive, and it can be difficult to find one service that organises hospital accommodation, transport and support. Destination Beauty offered what I described as a guided and handheld process. By handheld, I mean that they helped organise the different stages of the trip. From the research I did online, some overseas clinics appear to perform the procedure and discharge the patient very quickly. In some cases, people return to a normal hotel without nursing support, or to have to organise their own transport and follow-up appointments. That was something I was worried about. And Destination Beauty appeared to offer more support than simply booking in the operation. Their service included communication before travelling, accommodation options, airport pickup, transfers between medical appointments, hospital care, and some support during recovery. That organised process was one of the main reasons why I felt comfortable going ahead. However, an organised package does not guarantee a perfect surgical result, and that's an important difference. Good transport and a comfortable hotel and friendly staff can make the experience easier, but they cannot remove the medical risk of surgery. My process started through email. I contacted Destination Beauty and explained what I was considering. I was asked to provide information about my health, my medical history, and the changes I wanted. Now, since I used them for my bariatric surgery, I did feel comfortable using them again, but I still wanted to ask questions and find out about what results were actually viable for my condition. So for cosmetic surgery, I had to send photos, and these were photos of my face. So it was a front photo, an angle upwards, and both sides. This can feel strange because you're sending personal photographs to someone in another country. So before sending, I made sure exactly who I was sending them to. The photographs and information were reviewed, and I received a recommended plan and quote. Now, I did send them to 2 other surgical companies for quotes. So I was quoted for a full facelift and an upper eye lift and a neck lift. The surgeon's recommendations was largely based on my medical information and the photographs that I'd sent them. And that was before I arrived in Thailand. Most of my early communication was with a Destination Beauty representative and not the surgeon. He reviewed my photos and relayed back the information via the rep. The representative asked questions about bookings, payments and accommodation, dates and travel arrangements. This part of the process was convenient. I had some contact when I was unsure about something. I received information about what I needed to do before travelling. However, if you're considering surgery, you do not treat the booking representative as a replacement to the surgeon. A representative can organise your package. The surgeon is the person who performs the operation. So you should be asking, when will I speak directly with the surgeon? What procedure does the surgeon recommend? What are the risks? When I arrived in Thailand, I was picked up and taken to my accommodation. For me, this was one of the best parts of using an organised service. I did have to wait around 45 minutes to be taken to the hotel because we were waiting on other people coming from different countries. Bangkok is large and a busy city. Arriving in another country before surgery already felt overwhelming. So I did not have to negotiate with a taxi driver or try and explain the hotel address. The pickup had already been organised. Now, the accommodation was great. I was happy with the accommodation. I flew in with my daughter and we had separate bedrooms. Having separate bedrooms, having laundry services, a walk-in shower, these details became quite important after surgery. You may not feel strong enough to go shopping or walk into a restaurant. You may be swollen, uncomfortable and be taking medication. So the pre-operative medical checks. These included blood tests, a chest x-ray, blood pressure checks, a review of my medical history and a consultation before the operation. When I had my bariatric surgery, the checks also included additional scan of my stomach. I felt the testing process was thorough compared to some other stories I've heard online. However, medical checks reduce risk. They do not remove it. Passing a blood test or chest x-ray does not mean nothing can go wrong. It's also important to disclose your complete medical history. Do not hide an illness, medication, previous surgery. smoking, supplements or mental health conditions just because you're frightened they might cancel the surgery. If the medical team says surgery is unsafe, that can be disappointing, but cancelling is better than suffering life-threatening complications. Now, when I was there for my surgery, another person was there and she was denied having 2 surgeries. She could only choose 1 surgery. Now, she was pretty disappointed with that, but in all honesty, it was probably because they were concerned about her health. So these places don't just go along and do operations willy-nilly. On the day of surgery, transportation was organised from the accommodation to the hospital. I was admitted, changed into hospital clothing and completed the final preparation. Before the operation, I met the surgeon and discussed the procedure. This is a time to be extremely clear about your expectations. Do not simply say, I want to look younger, like I did. I said, I want to look younger. And he actually asked more questions. He said, what are the areas of your concern? And basically, they were my eyes and also my chin. And ask what the surgeon believes can be realistically changed and what can't be changed. I wanted a natural look. I did not want to be a complete different person. The surgeon marked areas around my face about what would be treated and explained what was going to be happening. The reality becomes quite different when you're sitting in the hospital waiting to be taken into theatre. When I woke up, I felt very dazed, and to be honest, the first couple of days I didn't really remember too much. My personal experience with the hospital staff was good overall. There was always someone there who could communicate in English for me. After I was discharged, I returned to the hotel to continue recovery. Now, destination beauty organised transport between the hospital and the accommodation. I also had follow-up checks with them cleaning my wounds and removing my staples and changing my dressings. So during the recovery period, I felt extremely comfortable with the process I was experiencing. Now, they had a nurse on site 3 days a week, but you could also go back to the hospital and get your dressings changed. So you could actually have them changed every day if you didn't feel comfortable cleaning your wounds yourself. I used the hotel-based nurse to have my dressings changed 3 days a week because I wanted them to check to make sure that everything was coming along smoothly. Everyone's experience is different, and by no means am I minimising the 60 minutes. Now we've come to the most important part. Am I happy with my results? Overall, I can see good improvements. The areas around my chin and neck are greatly improved. My skin feels tighter and my eyes don't sag anymore. One corner of the eye, there is a bit of scarring. Now, the doctor did say it can take up to 6 months, and I can see slow improvement. When I watched the 60-minute report, I found it confronting. The woman featured in the story described some serious and distressing outcomes. Those experiences should not be dismissed simply because other patients had had good results. And at the same time, I can only speak truthfully about what happened to me. Cosmetic surgery is real surgery. It involves being anaesthetised, cutting, bleeding, infection risks, scarring, and the possibility of permanent changes. Going overseas does not automatically make surgery unsafe. Staying in your home country does not always guarantee a good result either. However, travelling overseas does add extra risks involving distance, communication, legal rights, and follow-up care. That is the reality. What would I tell anyone considering surgery overseas? My first piece of advice is to research the surgeon and not only the company. Look at the surgeon's qualifications, experience, Registration and history with the Pacific operation. Before and after images are normally selected because they show good results. Ask to see patients with similar age, body type, skin condition and medical history as yourself. Read positive and negative reviews. Do not dismiss every negative review as someone being difficult. At the same time, remember online reviews not always give the complete medical history. Keep everything. Save your emails, photographs, medical records, quotes, receipts, and consent forms and aftercare instructions. Finally, have a plan for aftercare when you get home. Know which doctor or hospital that you can contact if you develop an infection or any other emergency. So final thoughts, would I have surgery again overseas? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if being under anaesthetic actually agrees with me. I felt really groggy for at least 2 days, and I felt that my healing was a lot slower. Now this could be because of me being diabetic. So, I think that was a really big part of my healing journey, because it does take a lot longer to heal, especially being 60 and being diabetic. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that helps you kind of think about, where you want to have your cosmetic surgery. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that helps you kind of think about, where you want to have your cosmetic surgery.